Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the first Moti-Vitality member-only exclusive webinar of 2016. And want to welcome those of you that are here live, as well as those of you watching this on the website. Just as a reminder, this is one of the many benefits that you get from being a Moti-Vitality member, which gives you access to not only these monthly webinars that we do, but also the previously recorded webinars, as well as all the tools and resources that we have available to us as well. Want to just real quick remind you that tomorrow morning we're having a guest speaker on the MV Pro Call, particularly those of you that are owners or managers or are looking for options for software options. This is an organization that helped Jen put together, gave a lot of information to Jen last year, I guess, but on last month's webinar, and so we invited them to come on and have an opportunity to talk a little bit about their product and service on the MV Pro Call. So hopefully you'll help us show them support and appreciation by joining us on that call. That's tomorrow morning, January 14th. At 8:30 Eastern. And then I will mention this again before we're done, but next month's webinar is going to be primarily for owners and managers, and but we're going to focus on interview techniques, on what the do's and don'ts of an interview, what the interview process should be like if you're bringing somebody into your company. Give you some tips and hints on finding the right person, the right professional to fit into your organization if you're looking to expand. But with that, let's get started on today's webinar, the Keeping New Year's Resolutions. Again, as most of you know that have seen my presentations before, you know I like to start every presentation off by saying thank you. It truly means a lot to me that you are taking your time to be here, and it's always my goal to make sure that the information that I give to you is at least as valuable as the time that you're giving to me. So thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. Start off with, you know, everybody always talks this time of year. This is the hit topic, right? New Year's resolutions. How do you keep them? Goals, commitments. So hopefully what we're going to talk about in the next few minutes is just a reminder, and maybe it will trigger something that you have heard before, that you, oh yeah, I got to do that, or maybe it will be that one thing that motivates you and you know, helps you keep them. I like this topic. I wish that it wasn't only this time of year that people talked about it, because it is kind of interesting in that roughly, and this is statistically year after year after year after year, only about 8% of the people out there keep their New Year's resolutions. And so typically it's about a 92% failure rate. And I think that's because a lot of people, they make these big lofty goals. This year I'm going to become a millionaire. This year I'm going to, you know, it's this huge, gigantic thing. But obviously, whatever the reason is, I know that when I go to the gym, starting in January, if I go to the gym in January, it's almost impossible to get on the machine or the racquetball court or the place that I want to work out during the month of January. I have to, it's crowded, and the space for the locker isn't the one that I want. But all I know is that by the end of January, it's back to normal again. And that's the way it is year after year after year after year. And the gym is, you know, totally crowded and busy at the first part of the year, and empty by the end of January, and even more so as the year goes on. And it's just something that I think people understand is something they come to expect. You said my sound is a little quiet. Can you hear me now? Okay. So what I want to do is try and talk a little bit about ways to keep those going. I mean, that's the title of today, and it's not going to be specific only to the industry, to the sales, or to whatever your goals are. I mean, your resolutions, your goals are your goals. But I wanted to share with you some things that were pretty profound in my life. It's been 15 years ago, and something that I bring back to mind and use regularly because I have to be reminded myself to keep my own resolutions. And so I wanted to kind of share some of the things that I learned that have really helped me stay focused and get things done. And that's what we're going to talk about. You can apply it not only to your career, but also every area of your life. And so I went to this goals seminar. Man, it's been probably 17, 18 years ago. And the one thing that I really remember taking out of that goals seminar was this. And now you can do a Google search all over the internet. It's called a balance wheel. There's different versions of it. There are, it's all over the internet if you want to find one to print out and use, and find one that has your own categories in it. But the one that I use basically has 8 categories. And it's got your spiritual, which doesn't necessarily mean religious, just your spirituality, your family, financial, career, physical health, mental health, educational, and then social. And what you're supposed to do with this, and I recommend printing this thing out and putting it on the refrigerator, just what I have done, or somewhere where you're going to be able to see it. What you're supposed to do is you're supposed to take each spoke, like for example on spiritual, you go through and you rate that individual category. Where are you in your spirituality? And rate it from 1 to 10. And you just put a dot somewhere on this book. So I'm going to say that I feel like I'm a 8 over there. So I'm going to put it actually in the middle. So I feel pretty good about that. My family, I feel like I'm a 7 on that one. Financial, I'm not quite where I want to be on that. I'm going to put here on that one. My career, same thing. I think I could be doing a little bit better in my career. I'm going to put that here. Actually, I started off here, so I guess I might as well do that. Make it consistent. Physical health, I think I need to continue to work on that a little bit, but I'm doing pretty good. I'm going to put that here. Mental health, many would argue that I'm way down here on that, so I should probably work on that a little bit. Educational, I'd love to go back to school, but let's see, let's put that one here. And social, I am, and I'm just randomly throwing these things out there. This is not necessarily an insight to me really, but just to give you an idea, let's say that I'm somewhere here socially, that I can do a little more with some social. So the idea here is to then take a line and connect the dots. I missed. This is what happens when you try and draw a line with a touchpad. So you draw the line, and then you take a look at your wheel. The idea here is that you want balance in your life. Okay, it takes each category, you look at the category, you rate it, and you try and create balance in your life. So it would be better to have 4s and 5s all the way around everything than it would be to have a 10 and 1. And you often see that sometimes when people that have they're doing really well in their career and their financial, but often their physical health or their family will suffer. They'll be down, and you have a much greater chance of success if you have balance throughout your life. And you'll notice here, in my physical health it dips down, it drops down there. So that identifies very quickly, looking at this, the areas that I need to start working on, that I need to focus on, because it in order to make it realistic. I often talk about the story of my niece when I had custody of my niece, and I kind of want to set the stage on what I'm referring to and kind of how to use this balance wheel. I'm one of those parents that I don't to clean it up completely spotless. But sometimes it can get, kind of bad. So I went down. She had a room down in the basement, actually, and I went down to wake her up for school one day, and her room was just trashed. I mean, it started to become a health hazard, in my opinion. I mean, it was just, there was, wrappers all over the place and dirty clothes. I couldn't tell the dirty from the clean and trash, and just, I mean, it was just horrible. So my instinct was to say to her, when you get home from school today, you need to get this. You need to stay in here until you get this room clean. You need to clean this room up until it's completely done. But what I decided to do instead was to think about this. It can get overwhelming. Here's a kid who's going to school, who has to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, go to school, which is work, and it is a job. And then to have to come home and try and look at that bedroom and go, where do I start? For me, it was overwhelming. I wouldn't have had an idea where to start. I mean, it would have been intimidating to me. So what I did instead with her is I said, hey, Krista, when you get home tonight, why don't you gather up all your dirty clothes and bring them up so that we can do laundry? And which took her, 10, 15 minutes, right? The next day, when I woke her up, I said, hey, Krista, when you get home tonight, tonight's trash night, why don't we gather up all the garbage and everything and bring it up so we can take it out for trash? And then the next day, I said, hey Krista, we finished all the laundry. Why don't you, put the laundry in your drawers and get all that picked up off the floor here and everything. And by the end of the week, because I set these little mini goals, things that took just short periods of time, by the end of the week, she had a room that looked way better than my room. I mean, it was clean. It was way less intimidating for her. And I think that's sometimes what you have to do using something like this, with this balance wheel. Okay, is when you look at it and go, I resolved to be a better person. I resolved to do whatever. I think that's one of the biggest reasons people fail, is because it would be like Krista saying, I'm going to clean this room, and then looking at it and going, I don't know where to start. And I think sometimes, let's say, people, they want to lose weight. They want to take a lot of weight off or something, and so they get to thinking, it kind of gets to be this all or nothing. I'm just going to attack it. I'm going to do it, and they starve themselves, and they try and work out for an hour and a half, and their body hurts, and then they're starving, and they're hungry, and finally they say, screw it, now I'm just going to be the way I am. Smoking, same thing. It's like there's always that reason. And so one of the things that you have to do is you have to want to make that change. The name of my company is Moti-Vitality, and it stands for vital motivation. And basically what it comes down to is making changes in your life, being motivated enough to make changes in your life that have a vital impact. So not just a direction in the way you go to work or something like that, but a vital change, to be vitally motivated to make a change that has an impact on your life and the lives around you. And that's what those are the hard ones. It's hard enough to change a small habit, but the ones that make a vital difference, those are the hard ones. So let's talk a little bit about how to make that happen. First off, there's some differences in the terminology. My goal this year is to increase my sales by 10 units a month. Or I just want to. My goal is to increase my sales. That's a lot of times, what the goal. I want to hit 300 units this year. Okay, that's a goal. Defined as the result or achievement towards which effort is directed, an aim, or an end. That's an actual goal. A dream is, let me see if, a dream, here's the dream. A dream is just an aspiration. Is anybody else having audio problems with this? Can you guys hear me okay? I just got a message from somebody saying that the audio was going in and out. I can switch over the
Callie,
audio.
I am noticing it's kind of jumpy, so I'm wondering if maybe you need to jump onto your phone. I switched over to my phone thinking it was my computer, but it does seem a little jumpy.
Okay, so a dream, this is different than a goal. Okay, a dream is defined as just an aspiration or an aim, and that's different. So a dream basically is, man, it'd be sure nice if I could hit 300 units this year. A goal is, I'm going to hit 300 units this year. I'm going to do it. Okay, there's a difference in the determination. With a goal, it requires resolution, and there we have the New Year's resolutions, right? That's why we call them. Resolution is defined as the act of resolving or determining upon an action, a course of action, a method, and that's very important, procedure, and etc. See, a lot of people, they just have the goal. I'm going to go on a diet starting next year. I'm going on a diet for sure. That's just a dream, okay? The resolution is to say I'm going to go on a diet and I'm going to lose this amount of weight by this amount of time, and this is the method that I am going to use. Those of you who know me know that in January of last year, I decided that I was going to get a mule ride for what I hoped was going to be my fiance, and is actually. When we went to Las Vegas, we took a trip over to the Grand Canyon this year when we were out there for Aquatech, and I bought this mule ride, which was a non-refundable ticket. I had to buy it and pay for it ahead of time, and they're going through on the phone. This is in January. They're going through on the phone, and they're saying, we need to you have to pay for it. It's non-refundable because it's too popular of a ride, and you have to meet all these requirements in order to ride this mule along the rim of the Grand Canyon. And so they're going through, and one of the requirements was that you could not weigh over 225 pounds fully clothed. And which is, I was thinking, I mean, yeah, but that's fine naked. I mean, because why wouldn't you want to ride a mule across the south rim of the Grand Canyon naked? But no, they want you to have clothes on, and you have to weigh less than 225 pounds. So I thought, it's January, this is happening in April, I got to be close. I might have to, do a little extra. So I went and stepped on the scale, and I was like at 246, and I'm like, holy moly, I got to get busy here. I was way over that. And so what I did is, I mean, that was my goal, right, was to get, I called it mule weight. I had to reach mule weight. And so not only did I have to weigh 225, I had to weigh 225 with jackets and hiking boots and jeans and all that stuff on. So I had to weigh more like 215. And so I sat down and I figured out, okay, what do I need to do? And I got a Fitbit and downloaded an app where I counted my calories, and I started exercising every day and managed to ride the mule, which was pretty nice, because the day before that I had asked Lisa to marry me, and she said yes. And so I was thinking, wow, phew, dodge that one, because imagine what it would have been like the following day to say, thanks for saying yes, honey, but guess what, I'm too fat to ride a pack mule. So it worked out pretty well. But anyway, that's the method and the procedure and the course of action. That's the difference between just saying, I need to lose weight, okay? You have to make a commitment to make it happen. Okay, that's the wrong commitment there. This one, I did think it was pretty funny, the commitment to, the prison to be right there with the marriage picture. But anyway, the real commitment that we're talking about today is the state of being bound emotionally or intellectually to a course of action. So it sounds very similar to that resolution, right, to resolve to do something. So again, just to kind of recap, a dream is, that'd be nice. A goal is, I like that, I think I'll try. A commitment or a resolution is, I'm doing that, period, no matter what the cost. All are important. You have to start with the dream, but in order to make that turn into reality, it has to become a resolution or a commitment. They're going to be short-term commitments, and those are going to be your 3 to 6 month commitments, and then your long-term commitments, your 1, 3, 5, 10 years. You know, and they are always going to be changing and adjusting, but you need to have those plans of action. So where do you start? Well, the first thing you have to do is self-analyze. Okay, so set that goal. I mean, for me, that's one of the first questions I had to ask myself when I needed to lose enough weight. You know, I had to take off about 35 pounds and in order to ride the mule, and, you know, to be comfortable and feel good about it. So I had to say, all right, I've got 4 months. First off, is that realistic? Is it a realistic goal? And, you know, it could have been different. I mean, if I had been 100 pounds more than that, I don't know how realistic that would have been. You know, and so I may have had to readjust the deadline for that goal success, maybe make that the following year that I was going to be able to do that. You know, I mean, it works the same way, right? If you can't just say, in 6 months I'm going to run a marathon, you know, or a half marathon, or even a 5K. You've got to prepare for that. You've got to build up to it. You've got to set a plan of action. You've got to create a path to be able to reach that. So is it realistic? For me right now, it would not be realistic for me to be able to go out and run 26 miles. That would not be a realistic goal unless I were to say, I'm going to do that next year. But in June, I'm going to go run a marathon. And, you know, and then, so yeah, that could be realistic, but then I would have to sit down and create the plan of action and figure out whether it's there. Is it realistic that you're going to, you know, this year I'm going to make $1 million? Okay. Is it realistic? Can you do that? Can you, you know, it doesn't do any good just to say it. Convince yourself first that that's realistic, that it's actually going to happen, and then create a plan of action on how it's going to happen. Can I commit? That's, you know, that's, I think, a huge one. Can I commit to it? Can I agree that this is something that has to be done? I see so many people, I've tried to quit smoking 20 times. Well, in my opinion, that is because you didn't commit to quitting. You know, there does come a point that you have to decide that you want to not smoke more than you want to smoke. And I get that. I completely understand it. I mean, it took a long time for me to make that decision. When I did, I had a vital motivator in my life. My son was born, and I decided I no longer wanted to spend the money or have all the ill effects that came from it, and I decided I wanted to be around and see my grandkids, so I quit. And I made a decision to, you know, to commit to that fact, to just do it. So is it realistic? Can you commit? This is a big one too, is how does it affect the people around me, and am I okay with this? You know, one of the things that you have to do if you're going to, well, let me use myself for an example. Again, last year when I went on the kick to really lose the weight fast and to exercise, it meant that I was eating a lot different. It meant that Lisa and I cooked meals that were not always the tastiest, and they were certainly smaller. It meant that I had to take time away from doing some other things that we enjoyed doing, you know, to go run or exercise or go to the gym. And this had an impact. I mean, it was definitely an obsession. You know, for me, the Fitbit has these little mini goals that you do, and, you know, you set these, you want 10,000 steps a day or 5 miles a day roughly, you know, and you're doing that. And it became this obsession, and the people around me knew, oh, Kelly's on his exercise kick right now. And I got to be okay with that. I need to be okay with the impact that it has on them, you know, the eating different foods and the cooking different meals, and are they willing to come on board and join with me? I mean, that makes a big difference. If you decide that you're going to quit smoking, then you don't hang around with people that are tempting you all the time to smoke. You know, you need to surround yourself with people that encourage you, and we'll talk about that in a second. But am I willing to accept the consequences of my commitment as well? And that is not only, you know, I talk to dealers all the time, owners or dealers that say, we're going to hire a new salesperson or 2 new salespeople. I mean, that is what Moti-Vitality does. We hire and train sales professionals. And so one of the conversations that we will have with an owner or a dealer when we say, okay, here's the plan of action, here's what happens. However, given the success of this program, what that means is now you're going to have 2 more salespeople doing, you know, 30 units, 20 to 40 units a month between the 2 of them, probably on average, more than what you're doing now. And that means that you're going to have to put a new truck on the road for installs. It means you're probably going to have to hire another installer. It means you may have to move into a different building or get more storage for inventory. It means, I mean, there's a lot of consequences to reaching goals. Are you willing to accept the consequences of that, of making that commitment? You know, and I think that's really important, is to sit down and look at it and understand, envision how your life is going to be different if you hit that goal, if you reach that goal. How is your life? You know, for me, am I willing, and I know this is minor compared to the, you know, the buying new trucks and hiring people and all of that, but you take off 50 pounds, you got to buy new clothes, and that gets expensive. You know, you've got to have all your suits tailored again. You know, that there are consequences to those commitments. Some are good, some are not always as good. You have to self-analyze and be aware of what those are, envision what your life will be like as much as possible. And then prepare for it. Everything has to be written down, and then post it everywhere. I think that's one of the reasons I really like the, you know, the Fitbit that I got. It buzzes and alerts me when I hit certain goals, and the apps that you use, you put it in with the calories, and it sends you these little way to go, and you can have these challenges, and it becomes part of your life, right? So there are apps for that. But even without apps, just take pictures and, you know, make lists and put them everywhere. When you get up in the morning and when you go to bed at night, make sure it's the first and last thing you see each day. And so that you're constantly aware. You're not able to be in denial over what your goals are. Recognize that things may be different than they are, and focus. Focus, focus, focus. And this is like what, you know, you can't do this big, humongous life change all at once. You can't do all these things. It's take that balance wheel and determine what areas you need to focus on the most, and focus on that area. It's sort of like with my niece's room. You know, pick up the dirty laundry first, and then pick up the trash. And then, so focus on the areas. I mean, you can have a bigger goal. These are your long-term goals, of, you know, where you want to be, but you got to focus on the areas that need the most help first. And like I mentioned, surround yourself with people that have either achieved the goals you want or are seriously working to do so. People that will encourage you. I know for me that was critical this last year in losing the weight that I lost. And getting in shape, was that I had other friends and family members that also had the same apps that I had. We would challenge each other and have little competitions. To have people that looked up, Lisa, my fiance, looked up recipes, and, you know, that would look good, but were low in calorie and, you know, and the high in the nutrients that I needed. And she would do the research and help cook those things and put them together, and we'd grocery shop together. And, you know, it was that it's important to have those people to encourage you, because change is hard. it's difficult. It's really hard. So make sure, and let's bring this back to what you're doing, to the water treatment industry. You know, if you're an owner or a manager and you want to make these changes in your business, then get involved in the dealer networks. Go to the meetings, talk to other dealers, find out what they're doing. Talk to the, you know, to the dealers that have either reached the point that you want to reach or that are working towards it, so that you guys can help each other and encourage each other and learn from each other. If you are a sales professional and you want to increase your sales, don't hang with the people that are lazy and just take house leads and you know, that are not reaching the goals that you want to reach. Okay, you hang out with the people that you want to aspire to be like, or bring somebody on board with you, somebody that wants to do it with you. You know, maybe there's nobody else on the team that you want to aspire to be like. So maybe you get a team member and you say, let's do this together. Let's grow together. But you surround yourself with people that encourage you and help you towards that goal. You have to maintain your attitude as much as possible. Again, that's easier said than done. I mean, there are times, you know, if you're a smoker and you've done really good and you've had that 3 weeks, but then you have that day and you go home and you have a glass of wine and you're sitting by the fire and you go, God, I just want a cigarette so bad right now. Obviously, that's going to happen. But if you maintain, feel proud about yourself for having that goal, for reaching that goal, for overcoming that obstacle, maintain that attitude. And then have a set date with benchmarks along the way so that you can measure your progress. I even went and bought a scale, a Fitbit scale. So when I step on the scale, it automatically enters the weight, and I look at this little graph on my phone, and I love it when it goes down. You know, you see this line that just continues to go down. There's other little goals you can do. You know, and I have this one that measures your heart rate, and I look at my resting heart rate, and the lower the resting heart rate, the better health you're in and stuff like that. And I set little goals to get my resting heart rate down to a number. And so in addition to wanting to lose the weight that I wanted to lose, I break it down into these little mini goals and say, okay, this week I'm gonna lose 1.5 pounds this week, or 2 pounds this week, and you set that down into little mini goals to help you reach that bigger one. And then practice. Well, this is a practice for you, I guess. So that, like, practice. Practice makes improvement, and that part's true, but here's a practice for you to do, okay? To start with that balance wheel. I think that balance wheel is really good, but then once you pick the area that you need to focus on, make a list of 15 dreams, take the balance wheel, and pick 2 from, you know, just a couple of dreams from each of those areas on that balance wheel. And you're going to end up with 15, 16 of these dreams. And then rank them with which one is going to be the most important, which one do you want to change the most, which one do you want to focus on, rank them from the most important to, yeah, that'd be nice. And then start with that first one. Start with number 1. That's the one that you focus on first. And like I said, this doesn't necessarily always have to be a work-related thing. Sometimes if, you know, there may be other areas in your life that you've got to get into order before you can focus on the advancement of the career. Maybe you're really happy with your career. Things are going really well there. But when you look at that balance wheel, maybe a relationship with your son or daughter has suffered, you know, or maybe it is your health, or maybe you want to educate yourself more on a topic, or, you know, whatever it may be. I mean, that's your own personal choice. But that's the practice, to sit down and start with it, sort of like we did with my niece's room. Start with one item. Figure out which one you want to change the most, which one you need to change the most. Start with that one, and then make that plan of action and follow through with it. I think the reason 92% of the people fail out there on their New Year's resolutions is because they look at this whole big thing and they feel like they have to make this gigantic change all at once. That's not the way it works. It's not the way it's successful. So write down your short and long-term goals and then analyze it. Just like self-analyze. Is it realistic? Can you commit? How does it affect the people around you, and are you okay with that? And are you willing to accept the consequences of that commitment? And then look for creative ways to make it happen, and stay excited, and don't let yourself get bored or complacent with it. Okay. Lastly, hanging in my office right now on the wall, I have a sign up that says, "A man who says it cannot be done should not interrupt the man who is doing it." And I have that hanging on the wall because I often, you know, there will be people, as you set yourself apart from others, as you excel at your goals, you start to reach some of these and you become a different person. There will be naysayers. There will be people out there that say, you can't do that. That's impossible. That's not going to happen. And I love this. A man who says it cannot be done should not interrupt the man who is doing it. You know, I like the possibility. I mean, sometimes I have this idea, this dream, and I'll start to talk to people, and I go, tell me why you can't do that. And they go, well, you just can't. It's just the way it is. Yeah, that's not a convincing reason, because if I follow this plan of action, you know, and I'll put this plan of action to people, and I'll say, help me understand why this would fail, you know, or if this would fail. Why wouldn't this work? I mean, everybody knows Roger Bannister, right? You know, 4-minute mile guy. Everybody said, can't happen, can't happen, can't happen, can't happen. It's impossible. Human body cannot run a mile in 4 minutes. Roger Bannister didn't. I almost said David Banner, right? He hulked out and ran the mile, and he jumped it. It's like, Hawk smash, the record. Anyway, Roger Bannister ran that mile in 4 minutes, and now it happens all the time. But prior to that, everybody was like, oh, it's impossible. It can't happen, can't happen. Roger Bannister said, why? Why can't it happen? I mean, that's, here, you sit over there and continue to say it can't happen, that it's impossible. I'm just going to go over here and do it, okay? And I love that. That, to me, is so inspirational, and I encourage you to remember that as you start to face those complications. If somebody says you can't do something, I mean, it could be that there's a valid reason, okay? But it also could be that they can't do it, or they're not going to do it. Shouldn't be what stops you. Okay, that's it for this month. Thank you, everybody, for joining in and participating. Sorry for the technical difficulties we had there. Like I said, next month we're going to be doing, I'm going to be talking very specifically about interviews. This is going to be primarily focused on owners and managers that are looking to hire for anybody, not necessarily just sales or management personnel in your organization. Some of the questions that you're allowed to ask, that you're not allowed to ask, and we'll talk quite a bit about bringing somebody on and some of the things that you need to do to prepare to bring this team member into your company. So that's our next month's member exclusive webinar. Thank you again, everybody. And if you have any questions or need anything, please feel free to give any of us a call. And have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.